Take 3 or maybe 4. All right, let's start this again. Okay, we're already 10 minutes in. Okay, hi everyone, welcome. Now for the next maybe 35 minutes, we'll be talking about workforce planning solutions on-prem and in the cloud. Questions are welcome. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom. This is Josie Manzano-Stettler from interRel Consulting, and I am co-presenting with Suraj Vamararelli from Twitter. Hey Suraj, tell us a little about yourself.
Hey, this is Suraj. I'm an EPM architect from Twitter. I've been in Hyperion space from past 10 years and Twitter from past 3.5 years. I take care of the EPM products at Twitter. I manage all the suite of products at Twitter. So this is my first presentation in the sense like I'm as a presenter. So yeah, just bear with me. Yep. Okay, go ahead, Josie.
You'll do great. You'll do great. All right, well, as I mentioned before, this is Josie Manzano-Stettler. I am the Planning Practice Director with interRel. Basically, Oracle EPM has been part of my life for the last 20 years, both as a power user and admin from industry, and as an implementer and solutions architect for the last 14 years. Okay, now for some reason, my screen is not showing what. Okay, I think I actually, all right, okay. So I actually pulled up the wrong presentation without the intro slides, but basically, before I start, I just want to mention that interRel is a 5-time award winner of Oracle's EPM and Analytics Partner of the Year. And we love to share knowledge about EPM and BI. And we do this through multiple platforms, including this virtual conference. So to find out more, please go to interRel.com. All right. So Suraj, why don't you tell us a little bit about Twitter?
Hey, so Twitter, I think like you guys might already know what Twitter is. So Twitter is a micro blogging site where people send out tweets. I think most of you guys are on Twitter. If not, like create an account on Twitter. It's fun out there. So, and then Twitter, so do you have the slide, Josie, which has the fun fact in it?
I do. I was trying to, hang on for a second. For some reason, it's not showing. All right. It's, okay. Yeah, it's showing blank. I'm not sure why. I think, okay, wait, bear with me. Let me just make sure. Hang on for a second. I am so sorry. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch the slide deck because I think I'm showing the wrong one, and I don't want to. Okay. Like I don't want to proceed with this. Okay. Hang on for a second. So I think this will mess everybody up. Okay, can you see my slide? There you go.
Yes. There you go.
Awesome. Okay, go ahead, Suraj.
Yep. So the annual revenue for Twitter is 3.4 billion as of like 2019, and most of the revenue comes from ads and data licensing. So we are headquartered in San Francisco, California. So one of the fun facts is you can see that's the first tweet that our CEO, Jack Dorsey, sent out. It's in 2006. So it's basically he's setting up his Twitter account. So it's been like 14 years. There are like ups and downs of Twitter. Yeah, we're still hanging in there. Yep. Next slide, please.
All right. Well, why do we do workforce planning and why is it important? So employees are the most tangible asset, and it's likely the largest account in your expense for your P&L. Employee data is voluminous and granular, and it should not only be used to forecast expenses, but it should also be used to generate scenarios to understand future demand for talent based on the company goals. Now, by incorporating HR needs in the company strategy, you can avert surprises and smooth out gaps and overages from business cycles, like COVID. Now, the ultimate goal is hiring the right number of people with the right skills in the right place and at the right time. In Oracle EPM, there are generally 5 different approaches for workforce planning. For the on-prem deployments, there are the workforce module, and there's also, you can also create a custom workforce solution. If you have these options, you should be thinking about migrating to the cloud or upgrading to 11.2. For the cloud, there are 3 options. We have the EPM Cloud Workforce Module, a custom workforce cloud plan type or application, or you could incorporate a high-level approach within the financials module. We'll spend time walking through each of these options. Let's first talk about the on-premise workforce planning module. The on-prem workforce module was the original pre-built planning solution that enabled granular employee-level planning, allowed you to incorporate actuals from your HR system, and allowed users to create and leverage expense drivers. It wasn't, however, necessarily the best practice design. In fact, several of my implementations involving the on-premise module usually utilize somewhere between 30 to about 50% of the pre-built content. It's important to note that for the on-premise workforce module, it is not supported when you're upgrading to 11.2 or migrating as a lift and shift to the cloud. But that's okay, there is a better way. If you're moving to the cloud, our favorite approach is to enable and configure the workforce module in Planning Cloud. And this would involve migrating over your metadata, updating your data integrations for the cloud, and you may have to review and probably redesign any custom configuration that you have and see if you could use the pre-built and definitely more flexible options on the cloud. And if that's not possible, then you can migrate any custom specific object. As a result, you'll have a much more improved workforce planning solution. Or if you're staying on-prem, you can create a new application in 11.2 and migrate over your artifacts. Now I'll hand it over to Suraj to talk about Twitter's custom on-premise workforce solution.
Sure, Josie. So this is an overall architecture of our whole Twitter workforce. So if you can see the ones highlighted in yellow, that's our workforce cube. So our main sources is Workday. So we have all our existing employees from Workday, and then we have something called active not started. These are all the employees who have accepted the offer but haven't started yet. That comes from a different system called Smart Recruiters. And there is like one system which has all the contractor information. So instead of like feeding in all the employees and contractors and ANSs differently using different sources, what we did was, so we just combined everything into one RDBMS. Like what it does is it pulls all the data from different source systems or HR systems every day using MuleSoft, and then puts the data in RDBMS. And then RDBMS, it's called HRDW, which we call like Human Resource Data Warehouse. It pulls the data, it pushes the data into the Workforce Cube weekly and also for monthly. And the monthly headcount that goes into the consolidation or fin plan comes from this RDBMS. So that's pretty much on the workforce. So yeah, so if you go to the next slide, Josie. So, so once the data is seeded, so they can do everything is custom. So we haven't used out-of-box workforce. Everything is built from scratch. So all of this functionality, so transfer in, transfer out, your departures and departures with backlogs and like backfills, everything is done from scratch. So it's basically it's customized for Twitter needs at the time, like when we decided. When we are choosing between the options of going to the out-of-box workforce or do we have to build a new cube. So we decided like we're gonna go with a custom cube. So this is how we manage our existing employees. Like it's standard, pretty much standard functionality where you do one-step transfers, two-step transfers for cost centers which you don't have access to. So and departures, you can do departures and you can do backfills based on departures, and all of that is in here. Okay, next slide. And so when we are designing the new hires, like there was a specific requirement from our users that so instead of having a new line for each and every new hire, we call something as stats. So how this work is like rather than having a one separate line for each and every each and every new hire. So what we do here is we just add number of starts in each month. So actually it goes across rather than going downwards. So if at all there is someone starting in Jan, you put one there. If at all there are two persons starting in Feb, you put in two there. So in the background, there are a lot of drivers. There is a lot of calculation. There is a lot of uh, midpoints, salaries, like RSU midpoints, like all of this happens in the background. So it's like they won't see anything here, but in the background, everything happens. So and then, so there is one special requirement which came in after we went live, which is basically users wanted to do it at job level and employee type, which are not dimensions here in our cube. So for now, what we did is like there is a workaround which we created. Like we created different kinds of employees based on the job levels and type of employees. If you can see the column, second column, you'll see sales, commissionable sales. If you have like tech, non-tech, like that, and level 6, level 5. So that is how we design and do the stats, right? So this is one of the workaround which we created, but with cloud, like we are trying to move around from this workaround. Yeah, next slide, Josie. So there are unique things that we do at Twitter. So this is like again, that's the reason we use the like we didn't use the out of box. Like we at 3 years back we made a decision that like all these customizations might not happen using an out of box workflow. So what we decided is maybe we should do a custom cube. So some of the things that we do at Twitter are like custom drivers for each work component. So because most of our work, like all the costs at Twitter, around like 70 or 60% of the whole cost is just workforce because we are IT company, so we're tech company, so most of our cost is workforce. So we do detailed planning at each and every individual employee, and then we do like detailed planning at each and individual account. So each and every account is tied to a driver. So and so second thing is attrition calculation. So attrition calculation we designed in a way that the users can input the attrition rate and then we annual attrition rate and we calculate the attritions. So they need not put in any numbers like how many people are leaving or negative TBHs, like they need not do it. Everything is automatic. All they have to do is input the attrition percentage drivers and then our calculation logic will take care of the attrition for the rest of the forecast cycle. And then, so because like tech companies, a lot of them have the sign-on bonus and then so your beginning bonus. Like what we do is like there are only particular levels that have sign-on bonus, and then all the levels might not have the sign-on bonus. So we just added like more and more drivers. Like, so what's the likelihood ratio of a person getting a sign-on bonus? Like all of these are baked into the system, and then we use obviously business rules to calculate all of this. So all the users have to do is input the likelihood ratio and the sign-on bonus per level. And then, so SBC stock-based compensation is one of the biggest like compensation or one of the cost component for us. So because again, like we are a tech company, we have a lot of SBC. So we baked in this SBC per individual employee level. So they're going to be inputting the stock price and then the number of stocks vested for each and every employee. And then we calculate the expense for the stock-based compensation. And also like we calculate the forfeiture associated with that stock-based compensation. And then one more initiative just came up, like we are still designing this, and then maybe we're gonna directly build this directly in cloud, is something called Proforma. So Proforma is, so if at all there are any transfers between the forecasts, they just wanna see the impact on the budget versus actuals and also the current actuals versus the previous forecast, right? So we want to see what's the impact of the current transfers in the prior scenarios rather than just seeing the impact going forward. We're going to go back, or we're going to go back 2 or 3 more cycles back and see what's our impact of the transfer. So that's basically pro forma, so that we are still designing. And then so we also added a new thing called backfill calculation. So there won't be any input of backfills. So everyone's going to be inputting how many months like they're going to take to backfill the position. So they just have to put in the drivers based on levels. So we're going to calculate the attritions, the attritions based on the backfills, and then add the backfills on top of attritions. So it's going to be, everything's going to be automatic. Like all they have to do is they have to input the drivers based on the backfills. Okay, next slide, Josie. Okay, so coming to the current challenges. So there are like a lot of challenges with the current system because like we have evolved a lot from the past 3.5 years after the go live, but still we have challenges just like any other systems or any other EPM systems. So one of the main concern that we have was like position tracking. So Twitter doesn't own a position tracking tool. So basically all the position tracking happens offline. So right now we just implemented smart recruiters. So it has some capabilities, but like it doesn't solve all the problems of position management. So we are trying to overcome that with cloud. We are trying to build a custom solution so that like we can at least track some of the positions in Essbase rather than in the offline spreadsheets. So when we don't have a reporting cube separately for workforce details, so we just use the BSO cube. Sometimes, like reporting on BSO cubes can be time consuming. So we are trying to bake in, or we are trying to build in the workforce details into ASO cube and as part of the cloud migration. And then the metadata process for employees, we don't have a DRM or any other metadata management solutions at Twitter. So we are trying to implement that as part of cloud too. So for now, the metadata is manual. We take the file, we process the file using ODI and then push those, and then we use the same file to load the data. And then because the data comes in a way that it's not like directly consumable by workforce application, we do a lot of custom coding on our FDME. So there is a lot of before after import scripts. There is a lot of custom coding. There is custom coding involved even in ODI. So we want to get rid of that because it's a lot of support on RN2. So for any change that we have to make, like we have to make all the changes in the custom. So we want to, whenever we are doing the cloud, we want to clean up the whole thing and then make sure the file that we get or the feed that we get from HREW or any other systems is in a way that it's consumable directly by the workforce. So as I mentioned earlier, like there is no reporting capabilities on job level and employee. So when we designed the whole system, so the job level and employee type were not considered as a dimensions. So as a workaround, like we just added the job level and employees as attributes. But there are some things that you could do with attributes, but there are still some gaps on reporting using the attributes. So we are trying to resolve, or we are trying to overcome that as part of the cloud too. And then one of the thing is workflow. So we haven't implemented the workflow during our implementation, on-prem implementation. So there is always like back and forth emails, Slacks, Gmails. Like so, there is a lot of stuff goes on during the forecast cycle because we do 4 cycles a year. It's always constant. Like the analysts like constantly do this forecast, and then we have monthly reporting. There is a lot of stuff goes on. So that's the reason like we want to include the workforce, the workflow as part of cloud, so that it will be easy for them to approve or reject some of the versions of the workforce planning. And then so these are some of the reasons like we are basically, these are the gaps that we have right now in our system. So we are trying to fill all these gaps or overcome all these like gaps in the system to migrate to cloud. Yeah, next slide, Josie.
Thanks, Raj.
Yeah.
Now we'll move on to discussing the workforce options on the cloud, starting with the Planning Cloud Workforce module. The Planning Cloud Workforce module has pre-built content to support planning and forecasting headcount and workforce expenses. It comes with forms, business roles, and navigation flows built based on best practices for common processes such as planning for new hires, transferring employees between departments, planning for leaves and terminations, and merit and bonus planning. You have the ability to incrementally enable features such as demographics and strategic workforce. And the workforce module can be integrated with other modules in Planning Cloud, such as financials and projects, or it can be used as a standalone application. Okay, the workforce module has 3 different enablement options: employee and job, employee only, and job only. There are differences in the additional dimensions that are enabled with each model, that you can see here. And strategic workforce is available for just the employee and job and the job only models. The benefit and tax wizard is my personal favorite component of workforce module. The wizard offers flexible templates to enter your benefit, additional earnings, and tax assumptions. You have the ability to just enter rates by month or rates with thresholds, or to options of a particular rate that would apply to certain employee groups, such as executives or international employees. You even have the option to enter custom logic. Also, it's in this wizard where you will designate payment terms, or if it's a one-time payment, whether a tax is applied to gross pay or salary only, and etc. Just to name a few items that is considered during the configuration of these benefits, taxes, or additional earnings. So under the covers, these are the 3 cubes that are enabled with this module. First, you have the main workforce planning cube, and this will contain your employee and or job data that is either imported from your HR system or calculated by workforce planning. You'll also have a workforce subcube, which contains the rates and runs the calculations for additional earnings, benefits, and taxes. You can also think about it as, say, a lookup cube for the rates tables. And lastly, it comes with an out-of-the-box workforce reporting cube. Now, there is a limitation, admittedly, with the current out-of-the-box workforce reporting cube, in that you can't, if you have custom dimensions, it doesn't recognize it. So what we do in the meantime as a workaround is we do enable a custom workforce reporting cube, and basically we build integrations to build the reporting data, the resulting reporting data from the workforce planning cube or application rather. And you can identify your out-of-the-box members by the prefix of OWP. So what does the dimensionality look like? You have 3 predefined dimensions: account, employee, and job. And this also depends on what enablement option you did choose. And then for the main workforce cube, you can enable up to 3 custom dimensions. And the dimensionality for the subcube will depend on which model is enabled. So you can see here, it varies depending on the enablement option you did choose. I'll go over the main features that are enabled with each model, starting with the employee and job. The new hire requisitions are entered through the new hire form. Salary can be assigned through defaults based on salary grades, or you can choose to enter the salary amount directly. After current employee data is imported from the HR system, You can use the Manage Existing Employee forms to review compensation detail by cost center or entity. You can also make adjustments to rates such as merit rates, or you can plan for transfers, changes in employee status, plan for departures, or change jobs. As far as transferring employees go, there are two types of transfers that are supported, the one-step or two-step. This depends on whether the end user has access for the to and from entities. The ability for mass transfers are coming soon. Yay. As I mentioned before, you could do other planning activities such as change employee status. The workforce module takes on all the heavy lifting involved with calculating compensation by utilizing employee status and salary rates, and leveraging the wizard to calculate benefits and taxes based on assigned defaults. You'll also have dashboards to provide graphical views of the calculated data and to support analysis. These are examples of analytics based on employee demographics. When you enable demographics, you will see 3 navigation tabs with the dashboards of different views of the compensation data by demographics. I'll talk a little bit about the job-only model. Job level planning has similar functionality as employee and job, but obviously no employee-specific data is involved. Here are the features and capabilities that are enabled with job-only planning. Transfer headcount, plan departure, calculate job compensation, and change salary. Strategic workforce planning can also be enabled for employee and job-only models. Strategic workforce will answer the following questions. How is headcount pacing? Are we hiring too fast? Will we have the people to build out new products and support the revenue forecast? You can model the demand for different jobs based on selected drivers and calculation logic. You can also model the workforce supply based on attrition or retirement rates to forecast talent gaps over, say, the next 5 years. So you have 2 options to take advantage of strategic workforce. The first option is if you want to have the latest strategic workforce version, it is important to note that it is sold by a different Oracle team. It's sold from the HCM team and not the EPM team, and it will require an additional licensing cost. However, it is the version that will be continually upgraded with new features. But when you enable this, it will be a separate application and a separate key. You could also use the old strategic workforce, what we were calling the old strategic workforce, which is still within the EPM cloud, and basically add your own logic. This will this doesn't require any additional licensing costs. However, you won't get any of the new strategic workforce planning features, but it is within the same workforce planning cube and application. Now, there are situations where a custom workforce planning solution is probably the better direction. So this is a case where we have a unique industry model and specific requirements that can't be met with the pre-built content from the workforce module. So not too long ago, we were building a workforce solution for a medical group, and we found that physician and nursing compensation models might be better served with custom logic in a separate queue. So that might be a situation where you would actually build a custom application in the cloud. There's also an option of not enabling workforce, or of not enabling the workforce module and just building a simple model within the financials module. This would be used for a high level and where it involves a high level and simple calculations for compensation planning. The form you see right now is an example of a simple model where the compensation expenses are calculated based on headcount and average hourly rates. And this could definitely be built within the financials module. All right, we're coming to the end. So we are working with Twitter to take their custom application to the cloud. We weighed options of either migrating their existing custom application to the cloud directly or enabling the workforce module. The path we chose dun, 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 is to enable the workforce module. Now, it will take a longer implementation time, but we will utilize the pre-built features, which now has a lot more flexibility, but much more flexibility than before on Prem, and try to address those current pain points that they're currently experiencing. We will also layer in custom logic from the on-prem model in areas like attrition planning or the backfill logic that Suraj had previously talked about. And we will also add in strategic workforce planning capabilities. So in summary, if your workforce application is on premise and you're not on 11.2, you have a decision to make before December 2021. You can either migrate to the cloud and take on one of the 3 cloud approaches we covered, or upgrade to 11.2, where you will migrate your application into. Okay, so we arrived at the Q&A session. Any questions?
Just in case, this is Danielle. There's a Q&A box just on the toolbar at the bottom of Zoom if anyone's unfamiliar with using Zoom, or you can send them through the chat window and I can read them off as well. Either way works.
Not showing here. All right, so I see the first question I see is we currently have 11.1.2 ... Okay, that last ... is actually important. So basically at 11.1.2.4, I think, as I mentioned before, our favorite option is to enable the workforce module, and then basically migrate your metadata, adjust your data integrations for the cloud, probably for data management, and also to review and probably redesign some of your processes that you have custom coding for. Okay, because there probably is an option now in the pre-built content where you could actually build it in within the pre-built configuration. And if not, then you can always layer in that custom option, or custom coding. And the reason why I said that last bit is important is that in 11.124, the migration using LCM is a lot easier. Now, prior to that, it could be a little bit different. It could be difficult. You might not be able to migrate using LCM as a whole, and you might have to even find other ways, either migrating in pieces, you know, such as, you know, like exporting your metadata a different way, maybe not through LCM, but through, like, say, the traditional export metadata options, stuff like that. So, yeah. All right, another question. Any idea why Oracle isn't advancing workforce planning versus SWP? There is a huge financial component that isn't embedded into SWP. Okay, so I am not quite sure about that. Tracy, are you on the line?
I am. Yes. Oh, wait, I didn't have my virtual background. Hi, everybody. So I don't know the answer to this question. What's great is Mark Rinaldi is going to be presenting this afternoon. So I encourage you guys to join for the Planning Cloud update, where you can maybe post this question to him and get kind of the official response. What I do know is originally strategic workforce planning was part of workforce, and they sold that. And what they found was, I think it was a lot of the HR departments that were evaluating HCM those were the folks that were really wanting to do some of the strategic workforce activities, managing supply and demand. And so that could integrate with EPM, but I think they decided that it kind of fit with that HCM solution. So that's why they moved just from a selling standpoint into that product. So again, it's definitely going forward, and it's going to continue to work the same cloud framework, really same solution, and can work very well with workforce. I think it was just a matter of, you know, kind of the folks who were actually looking for the strategic workforce were more in the HR group for whatever reason, and they switched it there. So I'm not sure if that's going to change. Oftentimes it does. So I encourage you guys to join the session today with Oracle and Mark Rinaldi, and then we can post that question there.
Thanks, Tracy. All right, we'll take one more question and we're going to have to wrap up. So last question, we use workforce planning 11.1.2.5.510. I didn't know that there was a .5. Will we be able to upgrade this to 11.2? So I'm wondering if this is actually the on-premise workforce planning module. If it is the on-premise workforce planning module, then it's not a lift and shift. It is not supported in 11.2. And so basically your option would be you'd have to create a custom application and migrate your artifacts over. All right. Okay, well, that's all we have. And thank you so much for joining our presentation, and have a great day.